FMCSA just finalized 11 rule changes, and most drivers have no idea what actually changed. Some of these rule changes remove equipment requirements, some clean up inspection language, and some clarify electronic record keeping. But here's the real question. Is this actual reform that helps drivers? Or could this just be regulatory housekeeping dressed up as big news? Well, that's why you don't have to worry, because today I'm going to be breaking down exactly what changed, what didn't change, and what this means for you as a truck driver on the road today. My name is Cole. I'm a state DOT cop, and I drop trucking news, trucking compliance videos, DOT compliance, anything pretty much CDL trucking related. I drop it on this channel. So make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss any new trucking news, any new compliance news, and that you can stay ahead of the game at all times. Let's get into the video. So these new rules aren't proposed anymore. These aren't under review. These are finalized. FMCSA completed 11 of 18 deregulatory actions that were originally introduced last year. That means this is an active rule change. But here's what most headlines won't tell you. The scale of these changes matter way more than the number. So instead of all the hype, let's break it down calmly and clearly. The first major change: electronic record keeping for driver vehicle inspection is now clearly acceptable. So your record keeping for your DVIR can be electronic. FMCSA formally clarified that DVIRs may be created, maintained, and signed electronically. Now, many carriers already do this, but the old regulatory language created gray areas that implied paper copies might always be required. Well, that ambiguity is now removed. This is regulatory cleanup, not a brand new system. So what does this mean roadside? If you're all electronic, you're fine as long as it's easily and readily accessible. That's the key, accessible. Now here's a quick question for you. Are you fully electronic for DVIRs, or are you still running paper? Drop it down in the comments below. Let's move to one thing that's really getting some attention right now, because this one involves equipment that you physically carry inside of your rig. Let's talk about safety equipment removal. FMCSA removed the requirement to carry liquid burning flares, spare fuses. Now let's break that down. Liquid flares are largely outdated, and honestly most drivers carry triangles. Most drivers that I come into contact with do carry triangles. I have seen on rare occasion flares though. And what about the spare fuses? Now this is something that it's good to just always have anyway. I like to call it cheap insurance, but many modern trucks actually don't rely on the same spare fuses that older trucks relied on. So FMCSA is acknowledging something that was already a reality. A lot of these items were just functionally obsolete. But I want you to understand this clearly. They did not remove the requirement to carry compliant emergency warning devices. You still need warning triangles. They just removed the outdated specifics. And just for the heck of it, I want to know, have you actually used a liquid burning flare or flares at all in your whole career? Share your stories down below, and if they were better than triangles, or if you think triangles are better than flares. Because most drivers I talk to have never used flares. And the next change is where people are misunderstanding things heavily online. Lighting and marking rules. But before we move into that, remember, if you want straightforward breakdowns of FMCSA changes without myths and without media exaggeration, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. A lot of people watch and learn from these updates but never hit subscribe, so when I drop something new, they have no idea that I dropped a new video that they didn't know that they needed to see. If you're in trucking long-term or even short-term, these updates matter. Alright, let's keep moving. Let's do a little deep dive into this rule change about vehicle lighting and marking. FMCSA added exceptions eliminating the need for functional license plate lamps on the rear of the truck tractor while towing a trailer. Listen to that carefully. While towing a trailer. And if you're asking why, let's talk about that. Well, effectively, the trailer blocks a tractor plate anyway. That right there clarifies enforcement interpretation. They also clarified that FMCSA does not require tire load markings on sidewalls, deferring that to NHTSA manufacturing standards. Again, notice a theme. This isn't a massive regulatory rollback. It's more likely clarification. And clarification reduces inconsistent interpretation. Another finalized change extends the CDL military exception to dual status military technicians. This harmonizes treatment for military personnel operating commercial motor vehicles. For most civilian drivers, this is not going to impact your day-to-day, but it's part of the deregulatory package. So I just gave you 3 of those major finalized items that's really going to affect truckers and how they do their everyday jobs. But now I'm just going to rattle off a bunch more that are also important, but they're not as zoomed in on as much as the other ones that I gave you. So we have changes to rear impact guard labels. And this one rescinds the requirement that the rear impact guard be be permanently marked/labeled with manufacturer certification. Next one we have is about auxiliary fuel tanks. And this updates requirements for aux fuel tanks under 5 gallons. Next we got portable conveyors. And this one adds an exception for portable conveyors from the brakes on all wheels requirement. Next we have the fuel tank overfill restriction removed. And this removes the can't fill beyond 95% of capacity design requirement for certain liquid fuel tanks. That's what I know many people will be excited about. Next we have one that talks about vision standards, and this one removes an obsolete grandfathering provision. Next we have water carriers references removed, and this removes obsolete references since FMCSA doesn't specifically regulate them. And those other rules that I just rattled off, if you need more in-depth information about them, like in list format, check out Landline Media, because they really go into full detail with all of those rules. Now here's where we can zoom out. FMCSA finalized 11 of 18 deregulatory proposals. They emphasize that the economic impact of each change is expected to be small or negligible. That's important. This isn't some sweeping industry overhaul. This is modernization, administrative cleanup, removal of outdated language, and incremental efficiency. So when you see headlines saying major reform, just understand the scale. This isn't rewriting hours of service, and this isn't even changing CDL standards on a broad scale. This is refinement, just fine-tuning things. From an inspection standpoint, clarity really matters. When rules are clearly written, drivers know what to carry, carriers know what to enforce, inspectors know what to apply. Because let's be honest, gray areas create tension. Tension creates frustration, and frustration creates massive distrust. So in that sense, yes, this is really positive. But does it fundamentally change the inspection landscape? No. And I think that honesty right there is important. Let me ask you something directly. Do you feel like FMCSA is actually reducing the burden right now? Or do you feel like this is just symbolic? Because that's where the industry is pretty much split. ATA and OOIDA describe many of these things as common sense reform, but some drivers feel like it's surface level, so I just want to know where you're at. Remember this, the regulations don't always change dramatically overnight, but really small adjustments do reshape the trucking industry over time. If you drive commercially, staying informed is a real life superpower. And whether you love regulations or hate them, knowing them keeps you ahead of the curve and way ahead of everybody else on the road. Now, there are still several deregulatory proposals that were not finalized, and if those are finalized in the upcoming future, they could potentially have a larger operational impact. So this isn't over. This is just phase 1. And if you want updates as those things play out, that's part of what this channel is for. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these changes actually impacts you as a driver? Drop your thoughts down below, because the trucking industry moves on both regulation and reaction. Your voice does indeed matter in that. If you found this breaking news breakdown valuable, go ahead, hit that like button, smash that hype button, and share so that this video gets shared to all truckers out there that need to stay in the know with the trucking news, trucking compliance, DOT compliance, and just stay ahead of the curve in general. Until the next video, stay safe, keep rolling.